every day we should be celebrating the consistent effort toward the goals. When we talk about results, we got to ask, why are we not getting the results we need? Or if we are getting the results, how did we get them? Guys, when it comes to time as leaders, we own what we say yes to and what we say no to. But to move from average to good or good to great as a leader, you must get a handle on the time. You got to know what you're doing and why it matters. Extraordinary leaders ask the question, what are you passionate about? In every meeting, you should be able to say, this is what we're doing and this is why it matters. Real purpose does not stem from a job requirement. Real purpose lies in a passion that we have so innately to accomplish a goal. Hey, all you guys, welcome back. I am super excited that you have joined me today to dive in to our third habit of the series of 6 habits for leaders today to navigate in our world, to meet all the demands that we are facing. If you missed any of the podcasts that we've had so far, we've dived into habit number 1, which was emotional intelligence, and it took us a couple of podcasts to get through that. And then we talked about habit number 2, communication. Well, today we're moving into habit number 3. So welcome to the Leadership and Learning Podcast. Right now, I want you to think about a wine vineyard. I want you to imagine all the rows of the vineyard. I want you to imagine the trellis and the lines of them, how the trellis is there and the vineyard and the vines are draping over that vineyard. I want you to imagine how they wrap around each other and they're wrapping around that trellis. You guys imagine all the healthy grapes draping over this trellis. Now I want you to think about that trellis as a support. What would happen without that trellis? Think about the vines. They would be on the ground. They could be open and susceptible to disease, maybe the pests that would get into them, insects. But off the ground, they have the potential to grow and be strong and be healthy. You guys, to have those healthy branches, you need a good crop. You need that sturdy structure, right? For them to grow. The structure diminishes the opportunity for chaos to exist and the vines going everywhere and all over the place. All this structure, this trellis, it provides balance. You guys, when you drive through France, there are vineyards up on these hills in just small areas. You wonder, how do they fit the vineyards in that small space? There's also all of these vines and trellises, and you wonder, how do they even work them? But you guys, in that small space on the side of the mountains, the trellis keeps them contained. It keeps them in the right area for growth. All of this setting is exactly like it's needed to produce some of the most famous wines in the world. You guys, in leadership, we need that same type of structure. We need that trellis. The trellis for us is what anchors us in our purpose and priorities. And you guys, that's what today is all about. Today, we're going to dive into how we can be sure that we're anchoring ourselves in our purpose, our priorities. The third habit of the 6 habits for elevating our leadership to meet the demands in the world today is anchoring ourselves in our purpose and our priorities. You guys know each time we meet, we have a 3-2-1 approach. We're going to have 3 points, 2 questions, and 1 quote. And then certainly we can't leave without an action item, right? So our 3 points, let's think about the ways that we can truly anchor ourselves in our priorities and our purpose. Point number 1, you guys, we have to have a clear picture. We have to see it clearly. We have to understand our why so innately in every single thing that we do. You've just got to know your why. Because when we have a clear picture, when we can communicate that specifically, then we have the potential to align all of our resources, all of our time, all of our priorities to that goal. This allows us to bring all of our teams together. We can collaborate. We can work together to achieve those priorities. It's absolutely essential, but you've got to start with your why first, right? And there's always that personal why too. But your personal why should align with where you are, the why of your organization, your school, your corporation. There should be some alignment with that passion. You guys, my why is to help others embrace the stretch of leading, learning, and service so that we can live out our awesomeness. Think about that. You guys, I wake up every day trying to figure out how I can stretch others in their leading, in their learning, and how we can serve more to make a difference. You guys, we should be able to capture our why in a concise sentence like that. If you want to take this for a spin, I have a real simple method for you to use. This is the one that I use all the time with my teams. You just fill in the blanks. My why is to, and then that's what your action is, so that, and there's your result. My why is to, so that. Just like I shared with you, my why is to stretch people in leading, learning, and service so that they can step into their awesomeness. It's a quick, easy way for us to stop, settle, and think about what's our why and how it aligns to what we're doing. You guys, you can change your why and your so that, but the sky's the limit, right? Because you want to constantly evolve. You want to get it tighter all the time. You guys, we got to revisit it. So I would really encourage you, stop, revisit your why. You may have written the paragraph form before. Some of us have written pages on our why, but I want you to really laser in. Our why is to, so that. You guys, in our show notes today, there's going to be a template for you to help with your why statement so you can begin constructing this. The key is the alignment of what we are doing and why we're doing it. In every meeting, you should be able to say, this is what we're doing and this is why it matters. This is why it's important. That clarity and consistency is essential, not only to achieve our goals, but to get everybody on the same page. They need to hear it over and over again. Think about it. If we know our why, and then the question we always hear is, what do you do? Think about that. When we meet somebody, what do you do? What do you do for a profession? What's your job? If we really know our why, you guys, that should change. Here's the difference. Extraordinary leaders ask the question, what are you passionate about? It's not about what your job is. What do you do? It's about what you're passionate about. That's why we can wake up every day and do the difficult work. That's why every day we can face the challenges, because we know in the core of our being that we're passionate about it and we understand our why. Real purpose, you guys, does not stem from a job requirement. I'm going to hold a second. Real purpose does not stem from a job requirement. Real purpose lies in a passion that we have so innately to accomplish a goal. You guys, the sentence stem that I was talking about on our why, there's also one about passion that you can use. I want to share, I know I've mentioned this book before. I love it. Reeves and Eckers, 100-Day Leaders book. You guys, you could use this in your next business meeting. You could use this in your next faculty meeting. The sentence stem that Reeves uses is, because I so passionately believe in this, I'm committed to. I'm going to say that again. Because I passionately believe, fill in the blank, I'm committed to. Educators, think about the goals that we have. Because I'm so passionately believe in students learning to read, I'm committed to. You can fill in the blank. You guys, a great exercise to take and move forward. You got your why statements, but then learning and putting into practice and understanding what our teams are passionate about. I'll use some examples for myself to give you a jump start on this. Because I passionately believe in the greatness of leaders everywhere, I'm committed to supporting them to thrive in their endeavors. Think about that. I'm passionate about leaders, so now I want to do everything I can to make sure that they're successful. Here's one more focused on a personal side. Because I passionately believe in the importance of loving and supporting patients through their cancer journey, then I'm committed to calling and writing some patients every single day. There's what I'm passionate about, and it's what I'm committed to doing. Once you find your passion, your commitment, you can do it. Here's even one more closer to home. Because I passionately believe in the importance of family and traditions, I'm committed to ensuring my family is doing something fun and memorable monthly. Again, something I'm passionate about, and then there's your commitment to it. It also lends itself to that accountability. But now you got to check yourself, right? So what was I passionate about? I can go back. I'm passionate about leaders. So I'm there to stretch the leaders. I'm there to be for them. So I have to check myself. Am I doing that? Am I committed to it? Am I making sure that happens daily? Am I fulfilling my commitment? Are my behaviors aligned with what I'm passionate about? I'll go to the one on my patients. I'm passionate about loving and supporting patients through the cancer journey. I have to ask myself, I'm passionate about it? So I said I'm committed to calling and writing patients daily. There's my check right there. There's my accountability. Am I walking the talk of what that is? Am I doing what it is? Once you determine what you're passionate about, then you can step up to the plate and say, this is what I'm going to do to achieve that. These are the accountability measures I'm putting in place for me. You guys, it has to be real. It has to be authentically you. You have to really think about that. So we have a why statement, why we do what we're doing. But if you really struggle with that, stop and step into what are you passionate about? You guys, I'm going to ask you as leaders, if I ask you, if you have a team of 30, a team of 180, a team of more than that, do you know what your team's passionate about? Do you know where their heart and soul is? Because if you can align passions with commitments, sky's the limit. We can make so much happen in this world. And that's what you've got to do. You've got to find the people. I mentioned my passion about supporting the cancer patient. I've found people that are aligned with that same passion. And I'm blown away every day with what we're able to accomplish. The numbers of the people we're able to impact because we brought the synergies together of people who are passionate about the same things, of making a difference. So you got to think, what does it has to do with leadership? You guys, I believe anchoring ourselves and our purpose and our priorities, we have to be honest about time commitments, because that's where you're going to funnel your time, right? With what you're passionate about. We need to know these passions at our workplace, because that's where we're going to spend our time. So let's go back to the visual I created at the very beginning, the vineyard, right? The trellis. You guys, that's the frame. That's the support system that we're talking about. That's what holds up our work. That's the why. And it is ingrained with everything that you're passionate about. We got to make sure we have a solid, sturdy trellis framework why, so everybody can align their passions. So as we close up point number 1, I want you to remember, you got to have a clear picture. That vision's got to be there. You got to know what you're doing and why it matters. Once you have that clear picture, once you have that why, then you bring all the passion to it, and all the team members' passions align. And then you have your resources, your collaborative efforts, your time allocations, everything can be devoted to those goals. Let's move on. Point number 2. Point number 2 is the alignment of time. I just mentioned that. But you guys, yes, this is seriously the Achilles of all leaders and all of us. I listed 3 passions for you. You can imagine the time constraints of trying to deliver on those daily, right? But to move from average to good or good to great as a leader, you must get a handle on the time. Our focus should always be on our highest priorities. Always. So think about it. In schools, if your highest priority is student learning, obviously within a safe environment, then if student learning is the priority, do all your time allocations focus on student learning? You have to ask yourself, where should I be spending my time? Who should I be spending my time with? Am I in the classrooms? Am I with the teachers? Am I with the students? It makes sense when we say it, but good gracious, is it hard? It is super hard living that out. So how can we check ourselves as a team? You guys, I suggest auditing your calendar. First thing I would suggest, take a weekly view of your calendar and print it out. And then what I would suggest, take a highlighter and highlight every single item on that calendar that aligns with your priorities and purpose. And really check yourself, because sometimes when we're doing that, we're checking our calendar, because I have done this exercise. I'll highlight things. Well, I'll make a reason it can connect, right? Or I'll find a reason. Well, that does this, this, and this. And it works, but it's really hard. You guys, if you have to explain, if you have to justify, if you have to stretch your reasoning of how the allotted time connects, then it really doesn't align with that priority the way it should. You have to remove or delegate those tasks. So they can still keep taking place, but you've got to remove them from your priority as a leader, delegate them to somebody else. Because if it does not directly contribute to the core focus, the core reason that you are trying, your core priorities, then you've got to move it on. I'm going to bring up an older book, and yes, it's older, and you guys can see all of the tabs I've had. I've had this book forever, and I still have it on the top of my credenza on my desk because I just love it. It is Leverage Leadership. You guys, on page 241 in this book, there are multiple examples of calendars for educational leaders. The book will really stretch you. It will push you on your thinking of how you organize your day, how you prioritize your calendars. You guys, some people will say it's just not realistic to designate and delete some of those items that are not top priorities. So what I've tried to do in my calendar, and I've suggested to many of the leaders I work with, designate some time, like 30 minutes at the beginning of the week and 30 minutes at the end of the week. So you can really address some of those outliers that don't totally fulfill what you feel like is the priority, but it does allow some time for those to be discussed. Guys, when it comes to time as leaders, we own what we say yes to and what we say no to. Think about that. You guys, that's not just as leaders. Anybody in our life, anybody that looks at me and says, I'm exhausted, I'm doing too much, I'm like, you own your yes and no. And I have to look myself in the mirror every day because I am one, if there's 24 hours in the day, I am going to pack 28 hours in those 24 hours. I'm going to cram every single thing I can into a day. So again, we have to acknowledge and own the fact that we own our yes and no to every decision you make. So we have to ask ourselves, are we investing? Doing whatever it is this productive, and is it impacting our priorities and our purpose? And is it impacting it positive? You guys, we have to starve the distractions. Think about that. These are the true time killers. We've got to starve them. We do that by delegating to somebody else. We have a gatekeeper of our schedule, or we build in those flexible times I talked about before. But you've got to really think about how you minimize the distractions. The last consideration for time I want you to think about is you need to name it, you've got to prioritize it, and you've got to plan it. Time, you got to name what you're using in each block and how does it fulfill that purpose. If it's a time block of an hour, how is it fulfilling? How is it really leading you to impact your priorities? If you hesitate on any of these things, if you can't name it, you can't tell how it's priority for your focus. And if you don't have a plan for that time, then that's where you've got to step back and say, hold on, I'm not sure it's effective. I need to maybe prioritize it in another way. I need to delegate it to somebody else. Let's move on to point number 3. In order to anchor in our purpose and priorities, we must consistently reflect and receive feedback. You know how important that is to me, reflection and feedback, but you guys, it's essential. But reflecting also requires us to stop and celebrate. Every day we should be celebrating the consistent effort toward the goals. People are working hard everywhere, all around us. Are we celebrating? And you guys, that's another way that you get that lean. That's the other way you get the passion to what you're doing, that you acknowledge these little incremental achievements daily by your students, by your teachers, by your peers, by your colleagues, by your employees, whoever you're working with. If you acknowledge the baby steps that are being taken, those are going to reap great benefits. Every day we should celebrate consistent effort toward these priorities. You guys, you got to find the ways. You got to look for it. You got to have your team help you find the ways. Consistently ask also in reflection, are we really focused on the right things? Are we getting the results we need? Are we anchored in our purpose and priorities? Then we should have all these achievable goals. Are we seeing the results? Have we aligned our resources? We've already talked about time, but all of our other resources. And have we motivated everybody and created a passionate team that's aligned with these to deliver the results? You have to check in constantly to see if you're getting the results you need. Because you guys, if we are not getting results, even if incrementally, we have to stop and step back and say, all right, let's look at our priorities, or we have to look at the strategies and goals to get to them. When we talk about results, we got to ask, why are we not getting the results we need? Or if we are getting the results, How did we get them? It's really tough as a leader if you're getting great results and you can't even name how you got them so you can replicate it. That's also why it's so strategic to be anchored in your priorities and your purpose. You guys, these are questions we should constantly be asking to ensure that we are completely anchored in all of our purposes and priorities. Let me give you a few more questions. What was our priority? Are we still focused on it? Did we lose sight of it? What were our goals to achieve it? Are we still aligned to those goals? Do I understand my role? Remember, I always want us to ask as a leader, do I know my role in this? But you want everybody on the team to understand their role. And also, is everybody fulfilling their role? If I'm saying I'm committed to something, am I personally fulfilling my role? Is there a gap? Is there a gap in what we're trying to do? Is somebody unable to fulfill their role? Maybe it's because they've got other distractions. It may not be that they just don't want to. You got to determine, is it will or skill? But is everybody fulfilling their role? Is there a gap in our why? Is there clarity of why we're doing this? Why our mission's important? Why we're doing this to make a difference? Everybody should be clearly aligned to that. Is there a gap in people's passion toward what we're doing? We need to understand where those gaps are. Are we celebrating along the way? And are our time and resources, are they completely aligned to the priorities that we have in place? You guys, we know leadership's tough. We're in it every single day. It's hard work leading people, helping people just survive, but we want them to thrive in our environments. But that requires prioritization. Many people are telling us right now they're overwhelmed. They're overwhelmed and they're stretched because we are not clear in our priorities. We're putting too much on people's plate. We cannot do that. We have to narrow the focus for everybody. And then when we narrow the focus and we align our why and we dive into our passion and how it's connected, then you've got so much potentials. We have to also, as leaders, learn sometimes there's lesser goals that we're going to have to let go by the wayside. Keep your priority on what's important. And you guys, if you achieve those goals, some of your lesser goals will come along the way. But you guys, that's going to help you not overwhelm your team. If we constantly reflect, if we constantly listen to the feedback, if we look at the data, if we review the results, you guys then will know we're truly anchored in our purpose and priority. You guys, also reflection and feedback allows us to make adjustments. Think about our vineyard. If we saw a problem in our vineyard, if some of the plants were starting to die, were they getting so much sunlight? Were we not planted in the right place? If we see the problem, we're able to make the adjustment. Maybe a portion of the trellis was leaning and some of the plants were landing on the ground. At the end of the day, when there is problem with that support structure, there's going to be problem with our end result. Just like for our team, if we've got problem in our support structure, maybe a team member is struggling. We have to be in tune with our team. You guys, point 3, always be reflectful, always be open to feedback. Our 2 questions for this podcast: how do you prioritize competing demands while staying focused on what matters the most? And a follow-up to that is, how do you stay grounded, you guys, during these challenging times on the practices that help you maintain the progress? What are those? Question number 2, what measures or indicators do you use to evaluate whether you are anchored in your purpose and priorities? How do you measure that? How do you determine success? Our quote for today: people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And what you do simply proves what you believe. Simon Sinek. I also am throwing in a JFK quote that I always keep close by: efforts and courage are not enough without purpose and direction. I love that quote. I got a lot of effort, but if I'm not grounded in my purpose and focus, I can be all over the place. So let's recapture our 3 points for today. This is our 3rd leadership habit, anchoring ourselves in our purpose and our priorities. 1, we have to have a clear picture, you guys. We got to know our why and align it to the passion. Number 2, we have to have alignment of our time. We can lose our time very quickly for distractions. And number 3, we've got to always be checking ourselves. Reflection and feedback are essential. I always say learning should equal behavior change, right? What's our action item? What are we being compelled to think about based on this podcast? I want you to revisit your why statement. Is it concise? Is it focused? And is it real time? Is it who you are authentically? And then maybe take that passion statement for a spin that I shared with your team. Let the discussions flow. I think you'll learn so much about each other. You guys, thanks so much for joining me on these podcasts. I love it when I get a text, an email, and feedback from you guys. It's so encouraging to me, and it also stretches me, which is what I thrive on. So thank you for joining. You guys, it's really essential that we all think about how we survive in our leadership roles in this dynamic world we're living in. You guys remember, you're absolutely amazing. You're a leader. You're in the role you were meant to be. Lead strong. You've got this. Thank you so much for joining me, Lisa Spain, for the Leadership and Learning Podcast. And I hope you have an incredible day.